Hey guys, tonight we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. Not from textbooks, not from documentaries, not even from the black and white newsreels buried in history archives. Because tonight, you're not just hearing about the Soviet Gulag, you're waking up inside one. Before we begin, if you enjoy these strange little journeys into history's darkest corners, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely like what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's watching this from around the world, drifting off to sleep while history creeps in like a shadow. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft hum, the white noise that makes everything just a little quieter, a little softer. And let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey, what it was really like to be a Soviet Gulag prisoner. You've probably heard the word before, Gulag. Maybe you saw it once in a history class. Maybe you skimmed past it in a novel. Maybe you vaguely remember it mentioned in a debate about dictators and human rights. But the Gulag wasn't just a word. It was a system, a massive, sprawling, unforgiving network of labor camps stretching across the frost-bitten reaches of the Soviet Union. From the icy forests of Siberia to the mosquito-choked marshes of Kazakhstan, the Gulag was the machinery behind one of the most brutal mass incarceration systems in history. But tonight, you're not reading about it. You're not watching it on a screen. You're not a historian sipping coffee in a warm library. You are there, right there, inside the wire, wearing a prisoner number instead of a name, shivering under a blanket that doesn't warm you, fed just enough to work, but never enough to feel full. This isn't a story of politics or policy. This is a story about waking up in a wooden bunk after a night of frozen breath and splintered dreams, about surviving on soup made from cabbage water and hope, about watching the frost creep across your boots while you dig earth that never seems to end. This is about aching backs, missing teeth, frozen toes, and the silence that follows when someone doesn't come back from work detail. It's not dramatic. It's not romantic. It's not meant to inspire anything, except maybe a deep sense of gratitude that you're lying in a warm bed right now, listening to this. So settle in. Let your muscles relax. Feel the weight of your modern life slip away as we step back. Not just in time, but into a place almost too grim to believe. And yet it existed. It thrived. Millions passed through it. Thousands never left. And you've just arrived. Are you ready? Because the guard just slammed the door behind you. You wake up to cold. Not the kind of cold that makes you grab a blanket and roll over. No, this is the kind that seeps into your lungs like frostbite with purpose. The kind that reminds you didn't fall asleep in a bed. You collapsed into unconsciousness in a Soviet Gulag barrack. And now it's morning. Barely. Your eyes open slowly, lashes frozen together with condensation. Your breath fogs the air in front of your face. It's still dark, though technically the day has begun. There is no alarm clock, no chime, no birdsong. The only thing that wakes you is the scraping of boots against wood, the clatter of a tin cup being kicked over, and the low, ragged coughing of a man 2 bunks down who hasn't stopped wheezing since last winter. Your bed, or what passes for it, is a wooden plank. No mattress, no padding. Just roughly hewn boards that don't care about your spine. If you were lucky, you might have a thin layer of straw between you and the planks. But last week, the straw was crawling with lice, and someone burned it for warmth. So now it's just you and the splinters. Above you, a bunkmate stirs. Their movements creak the wood. You hear muttering, swearing maybe, or praying. You're not sure. Language gets strange in here. Some speak Russian, others Ukrainian, Polish, Kazakh, Yiddish, Georgian, or nothing at all. But in the Gulag, you all speak the common tongue of survival. Silence, grunts, and the occasional outburst when someone snaps. You sit up slowly. Every joint complains. Your knees feel locked. Your back. It gave up on you days ago. Your blanket is a coarse, gray wool thing, frayed at the edges, thinner than it looks, and useless when the temperature drops to 30 Celsius, which it did last night, and probably will again tonight. You slept in your clothes. Everyone does. There's no other way. Your boots stayed on. If you take them off, someone might steal them while you sleep. You'd freeze barefoot, and that's not dramatic. That's a Wednesday here. You glance around. The barrack is long and dim. Rough wooden walls, uninsulated. Cracks in the planks let the wind in, and something worse. The constant reminder that you are in the middle of nowhere. No escape. Just frost and trees for hundreds of miles. There's a small iron stove in the center of the room, but it went out in the night. Someone was supposed to keep it going. Someone didn't. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they're dead. Maybe they decided they didn't care anymore. The punishment for letting the stove go out is as bad as the punishment for trying to steal extra firewood, which is to say, you get beaten either way. The smell in the barrack is thick, mold, sweat, unwashed bodies, desperation, the scent of men who've worn the same clothes for months, whose boots are crusted with frozen earth, whose blankets haven't seen water since the last prisoner riot, which ended with 3 missing and 1 buried under the floorboards. You don't ask about it. You don't ask about anything here. Your mouth tastes of metal and sour sleep. There's a tin cup on the ground near your bunk. It fell sometime in the night. You bend over to pick it up. Your fingers ache from cold and overuse. You shake the cup. Empty. Of course. You try to swallow. Your throat is dry. But you know better than to ask for water. You'll get some eventually. Lukewarm, cloudy, boiled over a stove that runs more on luck than wood. You've learned to ration every sip. You've also learned not to care if it smells a little like rust and fire. Someone nearby groans. Someone else is already lacing their boots. The clicking of belt buckles. The soft sound of breath fogging against the cold air. No one speaks unless they have to. Not here. Not in the morning. Words are currency, and you save them. A guard might appear soon. Or not. Sometimes they let you wait in silence, just to remind you that your time isn't yours anymore. That nothing is. Not your name, not your body, not your future. You glance out through a slit in the wall. It's not a window, just a crack wide enough to let in wind and light, and the smell of smoke from the kitchen barrack 100 meters away. someone stoking the morning fire. You catch a glimpse of movement, just silhouettes. Maybe a cook, maybe another prisoner. No one moves quickly. The cold punishes speed as much as it punishes idleness. Your barrack holds 70 men, built for 30. Double rows of bunks stacked 3 high. The air is wet with breath. Steam rises from bodies. Not warmth exactly, just proof of life. There's no privacy, no curtains, no modesty. Someone defecated in a corner bucket last night when they couldn't make it to the latrine. It happens. The bucket's full now. Someone will have to carry it out soon. You just pray it's not you. You carried it yesterday. The latrine, if you're wondering, is a pit. An open trench behind the far fence, half covered in snow, reeking of ammonia and despair. But at least it's outdoors. Some camps had none. Just holes in the ground and a shovel to cover your shame. A whistle blows. Not a sharp one. Just a half-hearted wheeze from the far end of the camp. It's the signal. Time to rise. Time to line up. Time to be counted, inspected, and marched into whatever punishment the day holds. You stand. Slowly. Every muscle complains again. Your boots feel heavier than your legs. Your breath curls in the air. You wrap the blanket around your shoulders, even though you can't take it with you. You'll leave it on your bunk. If it's still there when you return, you'll be lucky. If it's not, well, someone needed it more than you. Men begin to shuffle toward the door. No talking, just boots on wood, just the rhythm of routine. You join them. Outside, the cold bites your face instantly. Your nose stings, your eyelashes crust with frost. The snow is waist-deep in some places, packed thin in others. A guard barks something in Russian. You understand only enough to obey. You don't need translation to understand the tone of a man who has a rifle and nowhere else to be. You line up, shoulder to shoulder with other men. Some are missing ears, some teeth, some fingers. One man's coat is patched with newspaper. Another has wrapped his hands in rags. You're all the same here. Names don't matter, only numbers. A head count begins. A clipboard, a pencil, a frown. Someone's missing. The guard notices. He says nothing, just gestures. 2 prisoners are pulled from the line. They'll search the barrack. Maybe the latrine. Maybe the shallow graves behind the laundry building. You stand still. You've learned not to shift your weight, not to cough, not to look a guard in the eyes. The last man who did that was pulled from the line and beaten with a shovel. No explanation, no paperwork, just a reminder. After 10 minutes, the count is verified. The missing man is declared unavailable. The line begins to move. You march into the snow, into the forest, into the frost-bitten eternity of Soviet labor. The sun is rising behind the trees, pale, distant, uncaring. Another day begins in the Gulag, and you are still here. The march to breakfast is not a walk. It is a shuffle. Your legs are sore. Your face is numb. Your boots crunch against the snow, and somewhere deep inside your body, your stomach is already complaining, but not because it's hungry. No. Hunger is too small a word for this. What you feel is emptiness so wide, so cavernous it echoes. You trudge behind a line of men, some slouched, some limping, some carried half-conscious by those who still have strength to spare. A few whisper to each other in low tones, careful not to be heard. Speaking too loudly earns you suspicion, and suspicion earns you pain. The camp's mess hall is a squat, smoke-belching wooden building near the edge of the compound. It leans slightly to one side, like it's trying to escape, but got caught halfway through the thought. Inside, the windows are fogged from the inside, and the air stinks of boiled grain, wet wood, and too many bodies exhaling in one place. You wait outside in the line. You're not let in all at once. That would be inefficient, uncontrolled. Instead, a few prisoners at a time are waved forward by the guards. There's no clock, but you feel the time in your spine. Every minute you stand here is another tick of frost across your skin. Eventually, it's your turn. You duck your head and move through the door into the humid interior. The contrast is shocking. Outside, everything is sharp and frozen. In here, it's warm, wet, and somehow worse. The heat from the stoves doesn't comfort. It clings. It smells like damp boots and sour grain. Like hopelessness that's been cooked down into steam. You take your place in line. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is ladled out by two other prisoners, each wearing filthy aprons and expressions so blank they might be carved from ice. They don't look at you. They don't speak. They just scoop and dump. One metal ladle into your tin bowl. That's it. Kasha. Boiled grain. More like a sludge, really. Made from millet or barley if you're lucky. If not, whatever was in the storeroom and didn't have too much mold. No salt, no oil, just mush. Warm enough to sting your cracked lips, tasteless enough to crush your soul. You sit at one of the long communal tables, if there's room. If not, you squat along the wall and eat with your back against it. The benches are sticky with old porridge. The walls are streaked with soot, and the floor is wet from snow melting off boots and bodies. No one mops it. No one has time. The cold will freeze it again soon anyway. There are no spoons. If you still have yours, lucky. Most use whatever they can find. Wood chips, stolen metal scrap, or fingers. One man you saw last week tried to use a shard of tin, cut his lip, got an infection. You haven't seen him since. You take your first bite. It tastes like nothing. Not even like food. It tastes like exhaustion that someone boiled too long. Like cardboard left in the rain and sprinkled with despair. But you eat it. Because you have to. Because if you don't, you'll collapse in the work detail. And if you collapse, you'll be beaten. And if you're beaten, well, they'll just bury you in the snow and give your boots to someone else. You chew, you swallow, you try not to gag. You tell yourself it's fine. It's warm. It's food. Kind of. Someone across the table is eating too fast. His cheeks are sunken, his eyes wild. He hasn't spoken since his bunkmate died last week. He just eats now, like the food might vanish mid-bite. He drops his bowl. The noise clatters through the room like a gunshot. The guard at the door looks up. Just once. Then goes back to staring into space. There are no seconds. There is no asking for more. Your portion is your portion. Don't drop it. Don't waste it. Don't complain. You finish. Your bowl is sticky. You wipe it out with your sleeve. If there's a drop left, someone might try to lick it when you're not looking. After breakfast, it's time for hygiene, which is an interesting word in a place like this. There is no soap. Let's be very clear. The concept of cleanliness in the Gulag is not a practice. It is an idea, an unreachable one, a fantasy from another life. There is water sometimes. If the pipes aren't frozen, if the guards feel generous, if the barrel near the barracks wasn't already drained by the time you got there. Today, it's half full. You and the other men crowd around it. There's no towel. You scoop a handful of water and splash it onto your face. It's freezing. It stings. It feels like needles. But for a brief second, you feel human again. Maybe. You rub your hands together. The water turns gray instantly. Your fingernails are black with soot and earth. There is no scrubbing it off. You try anyway, a ritual, not a solution. Someone offers you a rag. It smells like old mold and body odor. You nod in thanks and wipe your face. You give it back. You don't own anything here, not even your filth. There is a bathhouse in the camp, a real one with fire-heated stones and steam. You hear rumors about it. Once a month, maybe twice if the camp commander is trying to impress someone from Moscow. When your turn comes, you'll strip down, be herded into a wooden shack with 30 other men, and sit in the steam trying not to pass out from dehydration. And when it's over, you'll get clean clothes. Well, different clothes, slightly less lice-infested than the ones you're wearing now. Speaking of lice, you check your seams, your collar, the inside of your waistband. Everyone does this. Everyone itches. If you're lucky, it's just lice. If you're unlucky, it's scabies, or a rash from the wool blanket that you suspect is older than the revolution itself. There are no toothbrushes, no toothpaste. If your teeth hurt, too bad. If they fall out, better. One less thing to rot. Your gums bleed when you eat. Some men try to chew birch bark. Some pick their teeth with twigs. Others just give up. You're not sure what's worse, the pain or the knowledge that no one is coming to help. There's a medical building somewhere, a whitewashed hut near the administrative zone. You saw it once from a distance, but you know better than to ask for it. The only people who go there are too sick to move or too connected to be ignored. You are neither. Once, a man you knew tried to fake illness to avoid the work brigade. He was found the next morning with 2 black eyes and a note pinned to his shirt. Not sick enough. You finish your hygiene, which means you splash a little more water on your face. Tuck your shirt back into your trousers and try to fold the lice back into their favorite hiding places. They don't bite too hard in the cold. Outside, the sun is higher now, pale but rising. The day is beginning to take shape. You can hear shouting at the edge of the compound. Somewhere, a cart is being loaded with pickaxes. Work detail is next. You rub your cracked knuckles and stretch your aching legs. And you wonder, is this what the rest of your life looks like? Boiled grain, frozen water, itching skin, and a pair of boots that don't fit but can't be replaced. In the Soviet Gulag, there is no hygiene. There is only survival. Cleanliness is a memory. Comfort is treason, and the day hasn't even started yet. You don't think about what you're wearing until the wind cuts through it like a blade. But now, standing in line, waiting to be assigned your work detail for the day, you feel every hole in the fabric, every patch that didn't hold, every seam that's coming loose. Clothing, like everything else in the Gulag, is rationed, reused, and resented. It doesn't protect you, it mocks you. Let's start at the bottom. Your boots are a miracle. Not because they're good, they aren't, but because they still exist. They're heavy, cracked, and at least a size too big, stuffed with straw you pulled from the bunk floor to stop your toes from freezing solid. The leather is so stiff it feels like bark. The soles are worn down to almost nothing. If they fall apart, you'll beg for new ones. You'll wait weeks. You might not get them at all. Some men wrap their feet in rags and wear galoshes stolen from the dead. Others have pieces of rubber tied on with rope. A few are barefoot, limping through the snow like ghosts. You try not to look at them. You try not to imagine becoming one of them. Your trousers are coarse canvas, faded, stiff, and eternally damp around the hems. They've been patched so many times they look more like a quilt than clothing. One leg is too short, the other is tearing at the seam. You can't complain. They're the only pair you've got. Underneath, long johns, if you're lucky. Probably not. Underwear is considered a luxury here. Some prisoners go years without it. When you do get a pair, they're usually full of holes and older than Stalin. Your shirt is thin, linen or cotton originally, but it's hard to tell now. It clings to your body with a mix of sweat, grime, and dried blood from a scrape you got 2 weeks ago. You haven't been able to clean it. You haven't even tried. There's no soap, no time, no point. Over that, a coat, if you can call it that. It's a shapeless wool thing with buttons that don't match and sleeves that stop too high. The lining is gone. The collar's stiff with dirt and grease. If it rains or snows, the coat soaks it all in. If it's windy, it flaps open like it's trying to abandon you. If it's cold, and it's always cold, it just sits there, unhelpful, absorbing your heat like a traitor. And then there's the hat, issued when you arrived, assuming the quartermaster liked your face. It's made of thin felt or fur so cheap it looks like it came off a dead animal, which it probably did. It doesn't cover your ears properly. When the wind blows, it lifts like a sail. Some prisoners trade theirs for food. Others steal extras. You guard yours with your life. There are no gloves. Let me say that again, no gloves. You work with your hands, you shovel with them, you carry logs, dig trenches, and move rocks, bare-handed in sub-zero temperatures. Some men try to wrap rags around their palms, but they unravel, soak through, freeze solid. Frostbite is common. Fingers turn black, fall off. A man in your barrack lost 3 fingers last week. Another lost all 10. He's still alive. Technically. You flex your hands now and feel the stiffness in your knuckles, like your joints are trying to escape your skin. The clothing of a Gulag prisoner doesn't fit. Not just physically, but spiritually. It doesn't feel like yours. It doesn't feel like anything. It's itchy, ragged, and anonymous, just like you. You look around, and everyone's wearing the same uniform of misery. There are no colors, no patterns, no individuality. Just a sea of gray, brown, and black. The occasional flash of red if someone's bleeding. Otherwise, it's like the camp has drained the life out of the fabric itself. Now imagine wearing that while living where you live. Let's talk about your shelter. Barrack sounds generous. It's a long, narrow wooden shack built fast and without love. One room, no insulation. The walls are made from thin planks that don't keep out the wind or the cold or the rats. The floor is warped, cracked, uneven. The roof leaks when it rains and groans under the weight of snow in winter. Sometimes it collapses. Sometimes people are inside when it does. There are 3 tiers of bunks along the walls. You sleep on the middle one. Above you, another man coughs in his sleep. Below, a stranger you try not to acknowledge. The beds are wooden slats, no mattress, just maybe a sheet of straw, which you change when it rots, or when the lice get too aggressive. There are no personal items, no shelves, no drawers. You keep everything you own under your head, in a cloth sack or in your boots. If you let it out of your sight, it'll be gone. If someone steals your coat, your hat, your boots, you won't make it through the night. There's a single iron stove in the center of the barrack. It burns wood when there's wood. Sometimes it burns dung. Sometimes it burns nothing at all. If you're lucky, the heat reaches your bunk. If not, you shiver until sleep comes, or doesn't. There are no windows, just slits in the wall, covered with cloth or dirty glass if you're in a model camp, which you're not. Air circulation? Forget it. When the stove is burning, the room fills with smoke. When it's not, it smells like sweat, feet, and fear. The door creaks on rusty hinges. It never closes fully. Snow blows in. Mice sneak under. You've seen rats the size of cats. Once one of them tried to steal a crust of bread from a sleeping man's hand. He didn't wake up. He hadn't moved in hours. The barrack holds 60 to 70 men, though it was built for 40. You sleep elbow to elbow, toe to toe. Privacy is a dream. Silence is rare. Rest is impossible. Someone is always snoring, groaning, weeping, dying. In summer, it's hot. The wood walls trap heat. The bugs are everywhere, biting, buzzing, laying eggs in the corners of your bunk. You swat at them until your skin is raw, then give up. In winter, it's worse. The frost creeps in under the door. Your breath forms icicles on your lips. Men wake up with frozen eyebrows. Water left in a cup overnight becomes solid. Your boots turn to blocks of ice. Your clothes stiffen. You lie curled in your blanket, if you still have one, and pray for morning. When the snow piles up against the door, someone has to dig it out before the lineup. You volunteered once. You never will again. Your hands went numb. Your eyebrows frosted. And you stepped on something buried in the snow, a hand. They buried someone there last week. They just didn't dig deep enough. So yes, this is your home, your shelter, your sanctuary. A wooden box filled with disease, vermin, and bodies that shuffle but barely live. A space where men fight over scraps of cloth. where blankets are more valuable than books, where a coat means the difference between a prisoner and a corpse. You think back to whatever bed you once had. A mattress, pillows, a door that closed, a roof that didn't leak. Maybe there was a light, a rug, a drawer with clean socks. That's not your life anymore. Now your coat has holes, your boots are stiff, your hat is stolen if you blink, and your bed is a board. Welcome to the Gulag. You are no longer a person. You are labor. That's the first lesson of Gulag work detail. You are a body, assigned a quota. You are muscles, boots, and breath, nothing more. You're not here to be rehabilitated. You're not here to be educated. You're here to work until you break. And then they'll find someone else. The day's task changes depending on the camp, the weather, the mood of the guards, and the whim of the administrator, who may or may not be drunk. Today, logging. You're in the taiga, deep coniferous forest, thick with snow, cold that settles into your bones and makes itself at home. You're marched out in silence with your brigade, a pack of 30 emaciated men, most of them limping, all of them coughing. The guards ride horses. They carry rifles and don't speak unless it's to yell. You hear the whip crack behind you occasionally, not as punishment, just as a reminder. The walk to the forest is a kilometer, sometimes 2. The cold is so sharp it feels like your lungs are being sanded from the inside. Every breath stings. Your nose is raw. Your eyelashes freeze together. You trudge through snow up to your knees, carrying a rusted saw, an axe so dull it might as well be a spoon, and your own body weight in dread. And still, this is better than mining. Those poor souls, sent into pits to claw at rock and coal with bare hands, breathing dust so thick it tattoos your lungs. Most of them don't come back. The ones who do are half blind, hunched, coughing blood, their fingers black and ready to fall. At least in the woods, you get air. You reach the site. Trees stretch in every direction, tall, frozen, silent. You're assigned a section, a quota, a number, 10 cubic meters. That's what you must fell, trim, and haul by the end of the day. The quota doesn't care that your saw is bent. It doesn't care that you're starving. It doesn't care that your boots are filled with ice. Quota is God. You begin. The saw bites into the bark with a screech. It jams immediately. You curse under your breath, adjust, try again. Your partner on the other end of the saw is a man named Arseny. You've never spoken to him. You don't need to. You both understand. Cut, breathe, repeat. Don't die. The rhythm is brutal. Saw back, pull forward. The tree groans. Your hands are numb. You can't tell if your fingers are bleeding or just frozen. The first tree takes 30 minutes. Too long. You're already behind. The guard walks past, glancing at your pile. He doesn't say anything, just taps his watch with a gloved finger and moves on. Message received. You keep cutting. Your stomach growls. It's been 2 hours since breakfast, and the kasha you ate is already gone. Burned up just keeping your body from freezing. There is no snack, no break. You work until they say, stop, which might be 12 hours from now, or more. Another tree falls, then another. You strip the branches quickly, inefficiently. You know the guard is watching. You know if you fall behind, if your pile isn't high enough, if your numbers don't match the quota, the punishment will be swift. Last month, a man named Pavel missed his number. Not by much, maybe a half meter. They tied him to a tree overnight, naked. By morning, he was a statue. They left him there for 2 days, a warning. He's still out there somewhere. You see his silhouette when the light's just right. You keep working. Your breath comes in gasps now. Your back aches. Your arms burn. The saw vibrates through your bones. Your ears ring. You haven't stopped sweating, even though it's 30 below. And the worst part? You'll never get good at it. You'll never build calluses because your hands crack and bleed too fast. You'll never build muscle because you're too malnourished. You'll never adapt. There's no improvement here, just slow erosion. Occasionally, you get a brigadier, a fellow prisoner assigned to supervise. He's just like you, but with a bit more food and a much shorter leash. Some are tyrants, enjoying their tiny power. Others are broken men, just doing what they must. Either way, you obey. You saw, you haul, you stack, and then you do it again. Sometimes the snow is so deep you have to dig out the base of the tree before you can even start cutting. Sometimes your saw freezes to the trunk. Sometimes your hand sticks to the metal and you leave skin behind when you pull away. Someone in your brigade collapses. No one helps. You glance at the guard. He shrugs. The man is left there, twitching in the snow. If he gets up, he lives. If not, well, that's one less mouth at dinner. You saw faster. Your breath fogs in front of you, blocking your vision. Your coat is soaked with sweat. Your toes are numb. You're not sure if your right foot is still there. You stamp it occasionally just to check. There's no talking, no singing, no camaraderie, just wind and the sound of trees falling. Midday passes. You don't notice. There's no lunch break, no meal, just a 5-minute pause where you can crouch in the snow, chew a frozen crust of bread you smuggled from breakfast, and try not to choke on it because your throat is too dry. You know not to ask for water. They don't carry it out here. Too heavy. Too slow, you suck on snow. Carefully. Too much, and your stomach cramps. Too little, and your lips split open. And all this brutal, endless sawing, this isn't even the worst kind of labor. Some days, they make you dig. Dig ditches in permafrost with rusted shovels. Dig graves, dig latrines, dig foundations for buildings that will never be finished. The dirt fights back. The frost makes it like chipping at stone. And if the shovel breaks, you don't get a new one. You get yelled at. Then you get beaten. Other days, hauling. Logs, stones, carts full of gravel. No wheelbarrows, no gloves. Just ropes and hands. You walk hunched, dragging weights like an ox. Your breath wheezing in your throat. And if you fall, you get kicked. If you refuse, they tie your hands and make you stand in the snow for hours, shirtless. Someone once tried to run. You remember it. He made it 2 kilometers before the dogs caught him. They brought him back, half eaten. The guards laughed. You didn't. You just sawed faster. By evening, your body is jelly. Your brain is soup. You don't think anymore. You just exist. Covered in snow. Covered in bark. Covered in shame. The brigadier blows a whistle. Workday over. You look at your pile. Is it enough? You hope. You can't even count. Numbers don't make sense anymore. You begin the walk back to camp, staggering, your arms dangling at your sides, your face cracked with cold, your knees buckling with each step. Behind you, the forest closes in, the trees you didn't cut still standing, still watching. And you know tomorrow, you'll do it again. If you're lucky, there are no churches in the Gulag. There are no chapels, no icons hanging gently above a flickering candle, no priests offering soft absolution in quiet corners. Faith here doesn't come dressed in robes. It comes wrapped in frost and blood and breath that clouds in the cold. It whispers through the cracks in the barracks and hides in the sleeves of men too scared to speak its name. But it exists. Oh, it exists. When everything else is stripped away, your freedom, your dignity, your name, belief is the one thing they can't take. So they try to starve it instead. Religion is banned, officially. The Soviet state doesn't tolerate gods. There is only the party, only the state, only the slow, grinding machinery of ideology. Your prayers don't get you better food. Your gods don't sign your release. You were sent here, after all, for being an enemy of that very belief. Maybe you were a priest. Maybe you owned a Bible. Maybe you crossed yourself at the wrong time. Or worse, failed to denounce someone else who did. Whatever the reason, you're here now. And belief? It's dangerous. If they catch you praying, you'll be punished. If they find an icon under your bunk, you'll be questioned. If they hear you whispering scripture, they might beat you until your mouth forgets how to speak. But still, you believe. You don't do it openly. There are no ceremonies, no rituals, just small things, private things. A murmur before sleep, a sign of the cross traced with your thumb on the inside of your coat. A half-remembered hymn hummed into the wood of your bunk so softly it can't be heard, only felt. Some men carry scraps, a pendant hidden under a boot insole, a rosary made from bread and string, a psalm copied onto cigarette paper and folded into a crack in the wall. Not many. Most things rot here, or are stolen. But those few who manage to keep their sacred items guard them with a reverence greater than food. You've heard of whole barracks gathering in silence, one man reciting prayers under his breath while the rest pretend to sleep. Guards walk past. No one moves. No one breathes. But the faith echoes like a bell, even in the dark. It isn't just Christianity. The camps are a mess of cultures. Russians, Ukrainians, Poles, Jews, Tatars, Uzbeks, Armenians. Belief comes in many languages here, and all of them are forbidden. There's an old man in your barrack, Avram, you think his name is. He prays facing east every morning as discreetly as he can. You've never heard him speak a word of Hebrew, but sometimes, at night, he stares at the stars like they might remember him. Another man claims he was a lama before the camps. He wears a bracelet made of knotted thread and speaks to no one. But when someone dies, he mutters something you don't understand and sprinkles a pinch of earth into the wind. Then there are the superstitions. They thrive here, maybe more than religion. Less dangerous, but just as desperate. Men believe in omens, bad birds, strange dreams, a cracked cup, a broken buckle, a name scratched into the barrack wall that no one remembers writing. You start to believe too, not because it makes sense, but because it gives you something to hold on to. Like the rule about bread. Never place your bread crust upside down. It invites death. Don't step over a sleeping man. You'll steal his soul. Don't whistle indoors. Don't count stars. Don't speak of freedom aloud. And never, ever talk about home. Home is sacred. Home is poison. Men carry pieces of it in their minds. A wife's name, a son's laugh, the smell of warm cabbage soup. But say it out loud, and it becomes real, too real, and real things break in the gulag. So you keep those memories wrapped in silence like holy relics. Some men believe the camp itself is cursed, that the forest absorbs pain, that the earth remembers every name whispered into it. You hear rumors of mass graves beneath the work sites, unmarked, forgotten. A field of bones growing just beneath the frost, and yet, hope clings to people in strange ways. You saw a man draw a tiny icon once, scratched into the dirt with a twig. A saint, maybe, or a face. He did it fast, before the guard could see. Then he brushed it away, as if it never existed. But for a second, it had. Others carve crosses into the beams of the barracks, hidden, small, invisible, unless you know where to look. Sometimes a new prisoner finds one, runs his fingers over the grooves, and just weeps. And in moments of silence, before lineups, after roll call, during meals, you feel it. That quiet pulse of belief humming beneath the surface. Because you have to believe in something. If not God, then luck. If not luck, then justice. If not justice, then at least a future. You tell yourself the work will end. The sentence will expire. The regime will collapse. Someone will remember your name. Someone will come for you. Someone will see your file and realize there's been a mistake. You pray not because you're pious, but because there's nothing else to do when your hands are frozen and your soul is fraying at the edges. You pray like a man digging through snow for a match he knows he didn't drop. You whisper names. You count the days, even when the calendar is gone. You scratch marks into your bunk post and watch them grow like rings on a dying tree. Sometimes the guards mock you. They find a man with a cross around his neck and tear it off, laughing. They throw his Bible into the stove and make him watch it burn. They ask him if his God will save him from a broken jaw. But the man doesn't scream. And in the morning when he stands in line, his lips are moving again. Not in fear, in prayer. There's power in that. Quiet, slow-burning power. More than fists, more than clubs, more than rifles. Belief here is an act of rebellion. To hope is treason. To sing, if you dare, is a revolution. Once in the dead of winter, you heard someone humming a hymn, just a few notes. In a barrack where men were dying from frostbite, from dysentery, from despair. The sound was so fragile you thought you imagined it. But others heard it too. They didn't look. They didn't speak. But for a moment, the camp seemed to pause, as if even the walls remembered what it meant to be human. You're hungry again. But that's not news. You're always hungry here. Hunger in the Gulag isn't an interruption. It's the default setting. It doesn't knock politely. It camps out in your gut, settles in your bones, and whispers to you at all hours like a cruel friend who refuses to leave. And when mealtime comes, it's not excitement you feel. It's dread. Because food, like everything in the camps, is a weapon. And today you're not sure which side of it you'll be on. Lunch, or what they call lunch, comes after hours of labor. No matter how early the sun rises, no matter how much your back is breaking, food doesn't come until you've earned it, or until they feel like giving it to you. You're marched back to the mess hall, boots dragging, stomach twisted. The snow feels heavier now. Even the trees seem tired. Inside the mess hall, the air is thick again. Steam, smoke, and breath. You're herded in like cattle. There are no greetings, no idle chatter, just the low hum of exhausted bodies. And the line. Always the line. You shuffle forward, bowl in hand, watching the buckets behind the counter get scraped shallower with every prisoner ahead of you. You wonder, will there be enough? Will they short your portion again? Is the cook in a good mood today? Then your turn. The ladle dips, lifts, pours. Into your bowl goes the meal, a thin gray soup. They call it balanda. It's mostly water with some floating cabbage leaves, the occasional potato skin, and, if you're wildly lucky, a fragment of fish spine or gristle. Protein? Rare. Flavor? Non-existent. And yet, this is your treasure. Your entire afternoon depends on it. You take your bowl and sit, or squat, or lean against the wall if there's no room. Elbows out, back hunched, protecting the food like a mother animal. You eat quickly, carefully. The soup burns your tongue, not because it's hot, but because your mouth is cracked and your gums are bleeding. There's no cutlery again. You slurp, you sip, you scrape the bottom with your fingers, licking them dry even though they taste more like tin than broth. Sometimes you get bread, a small hunk, dense, stale, blacker than the wood it's served on. It's a luxury, and it's political. Food here is rationed by category. A full quota of labor means you get the highest ration, maybe 700 grams of bread, the good soup. Miss your quota? It drops. Your bread shrinks to 400 grams. Your soup loses what little substance it had. Don't work at all? 300 grams. And that's a death sentence. Not because the food will kill you, but because the absence of it will. You've seen it. Men wasting away, ribs showing through tunics, eyes sinking deeper each day, limbs like branches. They can't work, so they get less food. But without food, they can't work. And so the spiral begins. Eventually, they disappear. Sometimes into the snow, sometimes into the hospital barrack, sometimes into a pit. You finish eating. Your bowl is licked clean, literally. You use your sleeve to wipe the last bits of broth. You're not ashamed. Everyone does it. even the guards. And that's the thing, they eat too, but not what you eat. Their meals are different. You've seen them, smoking cigarettes, sipping tea, eating from metal trays with real utensils. Meat, butter, real bread. The smell sometimes wafts out from the officer's mess and curls around your nose like a dream you're not allowed to dream. Occasionally, you're assigned to the kitchen brigade. If so, you get scraps, literally. Bones sucked clean, potato peels, the dirty water from boiling pasta. You once found a slice of carrot in a bin. You almost cried. But there's another side to food here. One they don't talk about out loud. The black market. Everything has a price in the camp. A crust of bread might get you a favor. A cigarette. Pure gold. A slice of salted herring. That's currency. That's negotiation. That's power. There are men here who trade food for everything. Tools, warmth, information, protection. Some hoard bread under their mattress and sell it later to the desperate. Others steal from the kitchen, risking beatings for the chance to gain leverage. You traded once. A piece of hard candy smuggled from a package, bartered for a spoon. You still have the spoon. It's your most valuable possession. Now, as for entertainment, that's a word that doesn't really exist here. But people are people. Even in hell, they find ways to distract themselves. You've seen it. After the evening count, after the final meal, when the barracks begin to go quiet, there's a strange second life that stirs. One man pulls out a harmonica. Where he got it, no one knows. He plays softly, broken tunes, folk songs maybe. Nothing cheerful. But in a place like this, even a sad song is something. Others talk, carefully, not loudly, but they share stories. Half-whispered tales of home, of wives, of the city before the war, of things that don't exist anymore. Sometimes the stories are true. Sometimes they're lies meant to comfort. No one corrects them. You've seen men draw on the walls, on scraps of paper, on the underside of their bunks. They sketch faces, people they love, or remember, or just imagine. Some quote poetry, memorized long ago. Lines from Pushkin, Mayakovsky, smuggled verses from banned poets, recited from memory like holy scripture. And then, of course, there are the games. Cards made from scraps of cardboard, chess pieces carved from bread and dried until hard, checkers played with buttons, pebbles, seeds. Wagers are made, bread crusts, cigarettes, small favors. Sometimes someone cheats. There's shouting. A guard comes. The game disappears. The silence returns. Once, on a holiday, the guards allowed a concert. One prisoner sang. Another played violin. An actual violin borrowed from somewhere. The entire camp stood still. For 5 minutes, maybe 10, no one moved. The music drifted through the trees, past the fences, into the dark. It almost felt human. But then the guards ended it. Back to the barracks. Back to sleep. You don't look forward to these moments. That's dangerous. Hope has teeth. But when they happen, when the barrack warms just slightly with laughter or music or memory, you let yourself feel it, just for a moment. because you need that. You need something beyond the work and the pain and the endless cold. You need to hear a song, or taste something sweet, or laugh at a terrible joke told in a whisper while a rat runs across the rafters. Because if you don't, you forget. You forget what you are, who you were, that you ever smiled. You finish your soup. You pocket the last crumb of bread for later. And you listen, just for a moment, to the quiet hum of a man singing to himself in the corner. Off key, off beat, but still singing. You wake up coughing, that raw, tearing kind that starts in your chest and doesn't stop until your ribs ache. It rattles through your throat, echoes in your skull, and leaves a taste of iron on your tongue. And no one looks up, because everyone coughs in the gulag. It's background noise here, like footsteps, like wind, like rats scurrying behind the walls. Illness isn't an event. It's the atmosphere. You pull your blanket tighter around you, if you still have one. You lie still, try to will your lungs to behave. The man in the bunk beside you hasn't moved since yesterday. You don't ask. You don't check. You don't want to know, but eventually, someone else does. He's cold. They carry him out at dawn, wrapped in a sheet if one's available, or just tied up in his own coat. The guards don't even blink. Death isn't noteworthy here. It's routine. And soon the next body will take that bunk. The cycle continues. Illness in the gulag is not treated. It is endured. Or not. The diseases come in waves: typhus, tuberculosis, dysentery, pellagra, scurvy, influenza, pneumonia, names that sound like old stories in textbooks. But here, they're personal. You know their rhythms, their smells, their fatal timing. The symptoms start slow: a cough, a chill, a loose tooth, a sore that won't close. And then quickly, the unraveling begins. Your skin goes pale, your eyes hollow out, your joints swell, your hands shake, your body becomes something you no longer recognize. A malfunctioning machine that squeaks and leaks and refuses to obey. There is a hospital barrack in camp, a single-room wooden structure marked with a red cross that might have been painted in blood for all anyone knows. It has no medicine, no supplies, no real beds, just cots. And the doctor? If he's a doctor at all? He's a prisoner like you, a man who once studied in Leningrad, maybe, or was a veterinarian in a village before the war. Now he boils snow to disinfect his tools and uses thread pulled from old clothes to stitch wounds. You line up outside, coughing into your sleeve. The guard waves in only a few. He picks at random, or maybe by whim. Your temperature doesn't matter. Your symptoms don't matter. All that matters is whether you can still work. If you can stand, back to the line. If you can walk, back to the forest. If you collapse in the snow, they'll drag you back later. Or not at all. Once you saw a man carried into the infirmary with frostbite. His hands were black, stiff as firewood. The doctor gave him a shot of vodka and amputated 3 fingers with a hacksaw. No anesthetic, no bandages. The man screamed once, then went quiet. They gave him a blanket and a corner to lie in. He died 2 days later. You never asked what happened to the fingers. The medicine here is more superstition than science. Garlic, if someone steals it from the kitchen. Boiled bark, salty water, a rag soaked in vodka and tied around the head. Some men chew charcoal. Others rub oil on their chests and pray to the God they swore they didn't believe in. The worst is dysentery. It comes fast and hits hard. You feel the cramp, the fever, the weakness in your knees. Then you can't hold anything in. Not food, not water, not your own dignity. The latrines are overflowing. The snow outside is stained with filth. You watch strong men fade into skeletons in a week. Eyes wide, lips cracked, hands reaching for help that never comes. No one wants to carry the dead. No one wants to touch the sick. You become untouchable, contagious, less than human. And once you're labeled unfit, you're moved to the invalid's barrack. That's what they call it. A wooden shack at the edge of the camp, past the watchtower and the broken fence no one bothers to fix. It smells like mold and despair. It's where they put the dying. Not to heal, to wait. You've walked past it. You've heard the moaning, the soft crying, the silence that follows. No one comes back from there. You don't want to go in. You'll work until your knees give out, until your vision blurs, until you start hallucinating fire in the snow, anything to avoid that place. But it's not just disease that brings death. It's injury. One wrong step in the forest. One log dropped the wrong way. One cracked skull from a falling tree or a faulty axe swing. There is no surgery, no splints, just someone saying lie down and hoping you don't scream too loud. Some men injure themselves on purpose, smash a hand with a rock, break a toe with a hammer, anything to be pulled from labor. But the guards know. They punish fakers worse than thieves. One man tried to pretend he had frostbite, wrapped his feet in ice all night. He ended up losing 2 toes. They sent him back to work anyway. You can't win here. Even your own body betrays you. You remember a prisoner who once stitched his own wound, split his arm on a splinter of iron and sewed it shut with a fishbone. Didn't flinch. Just looked around and said, "It's cleaner than their needle." He died of infection 3 days later. And then there's scurvy. You don't notice it at first. Your teeth ache. Your gums swell. Little red spots bloom across your legs. You bleed easily. Your joints scream. You chew on pine needles when you can find them. You suck on sour bark. You dig for roots you barely recognize. Vitamin C doesn't exist here. Neither does mercy. You see men walking with their arms locked at their sides because moving them hurts too much. They fall over logs and don't get up. You hear them weep in their sleep, if they sleep at all. Fear of death becomes your shadow. You feel it following you through the snow. Standing just outside the barrack, hiding behind the cookhouse, sitting across from you in the mess hall, counting how many bites you can keep down before the stomach cramps start. You don't talk about it. That's the rule. Death is not a topic. It is a presence. Unspoken, constant, patient. You've seen men pray to it. You've seen men fight it. You've seen men walk out into the forest at night and never return. But most just lie down one night and don't wake up. And no one asks why. No one asks who they were. No one even says their name. Because in the Gulag, death isn't the worst thing. Being forgotten is. You don't see many women here. But when you do, when a female prisoner walks past, escorted by 2 guards, eyes down, shoulders hunched, you feel the air in the camp change. No one speaks. Everyone watches. Not with lust, not really. With something closer to grief. She's not a woman anymore. Not here. She's a number, a body, a sentence in motion. And her story? Probably not so different from yours. Maybe she was a teacher, maybe a poet. Maybe she wrote a letter to the wrong person, or said the wrong thing, or simply had the wrong surname when the quota needed filling. The Soviets were efficient like that. Men. Women. It didn't matter. Guilt wasn't required. Just convenience. There are entire gulags built just for women, hundreds of them, thousands. Political prisoners, common criminals, wives of enemies of the people, peasants who took too much grain or spoke too loudly at a meeting. Many came with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Many came with children. Yes, children, infants even. Because where else would they go? Some babies were born in transit, on the floor of overcrowded cattle cars, wrapped in rags, their cries muffled by the sound of wheels and weeping. Others were born behind barbed wire, in cold, dusty barracks with no doctors, no warmth, and no promise of surviving the week. You've heard stories, shared in whispers, of mothers forced to give birth alone, squatting in corners of prison hospitals where the rats were bolder than the nurses, of babies taken away after a few months, handed to orphanages where the luckiest were renamed and forgotten, where the unlucky weren't. Women who kept their children with them faced impossible choices. You can't feed a baby with rationed soup. You can't warm an infant with your own body when your own body is already freezing. Some children lived their first years behind barbed wire, breathing the same air as their mothers, wrapped in makeshift clothes, their lullabies sung in hushed desperation. And yet, some survived. You've seen women in work brigades, pushing wheelbarrows with one arm and holding a child in the other. You've seen girls barely into adolescence chopping wood, shoveling coal, doing light labor with blistered hands and hollow eyes. Because here, there's no childhood. There's just smaller labor, smaller suffering. Some women were assigned to domestic work, laundries, kitchens, sewing brigades. But don't let that fool you. There was no safety in those walls, no comfort in being indoors. The cold found its way in anyway. The hunger never left. And the danger came from the guards, from the brigadiers, from fellow prisoners. There are things not spoken aloud in the camps, things that happen after dark, things that go unpunished. You've heard the rumors. You've seen the bruises. You've seen women pulled from the barracks late at night and returned hours later, silent, broken, bleeding. Sometimes they didn't come back at all. Rape wasn't policy, but it might as well have been. And if a woman became pregnant, she worked anyway. right up until the birth. No maternity leave, no medicine, no support. Just more pain, more risk. And the child? Sometimes it lived. More often, it didn't. Some women were sterilized without consent. Others volunteered if only to avoid another mouth to feed. Family in the Gulag was a memory, a photograph hidden in the lining of a coat, a letter reread until the ink faded, a name whispered before sleep. You didn't speak of your children if they were free. You didn't say their names too loudly. That made them real, and real things could be taken away. If you had a wife or a husband outside, you didn't expect them to wait. You hoped they survived. You hoped they remarried. You hoped they lived and didn't ask too many questions. Letters sometimes arrived. Censored, of course. Entire paragraphs blacked out. A sentence that simply said, "We are well." A postcard with no signature. And then one day, the letters stopped. Maybe the address was lost. Maybe the censors decided you no longer needed contact. Or maybe the person you loved stopped writing. Not out of malice, out of mercy. Some men tore the letters up. Others read them aloud to their barracks, pretending to laugh at the mistakes in grammar, pretending it didn't hurt. Family wasn't just blood in the Gulag. Sometimes it was the man who shared your bunk and gave you the better half of his bread. Sometimes it was the woman who stitched your torn coat in silence. Sometimes it was the old prisoner who taught you how to make a spoon from bone, or how to wrap your feet in rags to stop the frostbite. In a place where nothing belongs to you, not your name, not your time, not even your thoughts. Family becomes whoever keeps you alive one more day. But make no mistake, this place breaks families. That's part of its design. You came here for being someone's daughter, someone's wife, someone's cousin. Your crime might have been loyalty, a shared address, a misplaced trust. You stayed here because there's no exit except through death or miracle. And when you do finally leave, if you ever do, you'll go home to find your parents older, your children grown, your siblings distant, or gone. Because 10 years in the Gulag isn't just 10 years of labor. It's 10 years of birthdays you missed, 10 years of names forgotten, 10 years of fading photographs and empty beds. And if your whole family was arrested, as many were, then there is no one left to go home to. You stand in a snow-covered yard, listening to a woman cry behind a barrack wall. You don't know her name. You never will. But you understand her. Because even here, beneath the lice and frost and rot, family still lives. In memory, in pain, in silence. And in the smallest things, a song your mother once sang, a bedtime story you repeat to yourself as you try to sleep on frozen wood, a promise you made to your child, softly, so they wouldn't hear the fear in your voice. I'll come back. Even if you knew, you probably wouldn't. The sun doesn't warm anything. It just shifts the shadows around. Afternoon in the Gulag is not a time of rest. It is not a lunch break or a breather or a moment to gather your strength. It is simply the continuation of survival under a paler sky. By now, your arms have stopped aching. Not because they're fine, because they've gone numb. Your legs drag. Your throat burns. Your back is a knot of pain so deep you can't even locate where it started anymore. And the quota? It still hasn't been met. So you keep going. Another log. Another ditch. Another sack of stones hauled across frozen earth. The hours blur together. You work until you forget why you're doing it. You work so you won't be punished. You work so you won't freeze. You work so you don't think. But the danger isn't just in the work. It's in the people around you. The Gulag is a world of forced coexistence. Political prisoners, criminals, collaborators, informants, foreigners, intellectuals, peasants, murderers, poets. Everyone is guilty of something, or nothing, and no one trusts anyone. The system encourages it. Some prisoners get better food, better clothes, lighter labor. Not because they worked harder, but because they agreed to report. Yes, snitches. The sexotes. Secret informants. Men who listen. Men who watch. Men who nod along as you complain about the guards and then walk straight to the administrative barrack with every word you said. They are rewarded. Not generously, but enough. An extra crust of bread, a warmer coat, a promise of early release that never comes. You learn quickly. Don't speak. Don't confide. Don't say anything that can be used, because it will be used. Sometimes you suspect your own bunkmate. Sometimes the man who gave you half his ration yesterday will sell you out today for a cigarette. There are no friendships in the Gulag, only temporary alliances. You keep your head down. You nod. You smile. You tell no one what you truly think. Even your thoughts begin to police themselves. And then there are fights. Tensions boil over like soup left too long on a fire. A man cuts in line at the mess hall. A tool goes missing. A coat disappears from a bunk. Suddenly, someone is yelling. Someone else is bleeding. You turn away. You pretend you didn't see it. Because if the guards get involved, they don't ask questions. They punish everyone, sometimes with fists, sometimes with solitary. Ah yes, solitary confinement. A punishment within a punishment. It's a wooden box. Dark, freezing. No window, no bedding, no light. Just you, the cold, and your thoughts, which turn loud and cruel in the dark. You're thrown in with no coat, maybe no shoes. You stand all night. You shiver. You whisper to yourself just to hear a voice. And when they let you out, the world feels too big, the light too bright, your mind not quite right. You've seen men come back from solitary and never speak again. But not all punishment is so official. Some of it is administrative violence, quiet, off-the-books cruelty, a missed meal, a transfer to a harsher camp, a sentence mysteriously extended, a labor assignment so brutal it's practically a death notice. You never know when it's coming, and sometimes it doesn't come from the guards. It comes from inside. See, the Gulag breeds its own hierarchies. The criminal class, the blotny, are a world unto themselves. Tattooed, ruthless, organized. Some are gang leaders. Some are thieves. Some are violent beyond description. and many of them are given power over the rest. The guards delegate. It's easier that way. Let the prisoners control each other. So the criminal bosses decide who gets the best bunk, who gets the safest job, who eats and who starves. Disobey them? You'll wish it was a guard punishing you. They have their own rules, their own language, their own justice. Political prisoners, intellectuals, writers, teachers are on the lowest rung. They are mocked, abused, humiliated. Beaten not because they were criminals, but because they weren't. Once you saw a professor beaten with a shovel because he refused to clean a latrine the right way. His crime? Thinking too much. You helped carry him back to the barrack. His glasses were broken. He never read again. The lines between the official Soviet system and the unofficial prisoner society are blurred, but the violence is the same, sometimes worse. And the guards, they just watch. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes they bet on who will win. Once, during a transport, two prisoners began to argue. It escalated. A fight broke out. Blood on the floor of the train car. The guard opened the door, leaned in and said, "Don't stop on my account," then closed it again. In the afternoon, tempers are sharp. Fatigue makes everyone edgy. Hunger makes everyone cruel. And fear makes everyone quiet. So when fights break out, they are fast, brutal, over before anyone can intervene. A rock, a rusted spoon, a sharpened bone. These are weapons here, and sometimes words. A single sentence can be fatal. Call someone an informant, a traitor, a rapist. Doesn't matter if it's true. The accusation sticks, and someone ends up buried behind the latrine. The camp is full of ghosts, people who just disappeared. No file, no announcement. One day they were there. The next, their bunk was empty. No one asks questions. You're expected to keep moving, to keep sawing, to keep shoveling, to keep nodding at guards who might kill you, to keep working beside men who might betray you, and all the while pretending none of it bothers you, pretending this is normal. But it's not. You know that. You feel it in your bones, in the way your fists clench when a guard looks at you too long, in the way you flinch when someone speaks your name, in the way your voice trembles when you try to remember what your home looked like. Afternoon in the Gulag is not just about the labor. It's about the quiet violence that lives between the shovels. It's about surviving not just the cold, but the people. Because the Gulag doesn't just kill with frost. It kills with fear, with whispers, with silence. Night falls without ceremony. There is no golden hour here, no gentle sunset, just the slow dimming of light until the forest disappears and the world becomes gray, then black, then nothing. And as the darkness creeps in, the camp changes, the silence thickens, the guards grow quieter, the prisoners grow smaller. The shadows stretch longer across the snow, like fingers. You march back from the work site in the cold, always the cold. It bites harder at night. Your breath fogs out ahead of you like a warning. Your limbs are stiff. Your face is numb. Your hands so raw, they bleed when you flex them. You can no longer tell if your toes are frostbitten or simply forgotten. The barrack glows dimly in the distance, a single, flickering light. a bulb that has no business still working. You can already smell it, the sweat, the mildew, the unwashed bodies. You long for it anyway. Not because it's warm, it isn't. Not because it's safe, it never was. But because it's the only shelter you're allowed to imagine. You cross the camp yard, past the latrine pit, the empty guard tower, the black mound behind the kitchen that everyone knows is a graveyard, but no one dares name. You pass the invalid's hut. It's quieter now. It always is at night. Those who cry out have stopped, or they've moved past crying. You step into the barrack. The smell hits first. Damp wood, dirty straw, the sour tang of wet wool and unwashed skin. You inhale it like it's air. You walk to your bunk if it's still yours. Sometimes they shift people around. Sometimes someone dies, and their bed is filled before their body is cold. You hope your blanket is still there. You hope your spoon hasn't been stolen. You hope you don't have to sleep next to the man with the cough that sounds like the end of the world. You sit, and you wait. There's always waiting at night, waiting for the head count, waiting for someone to be dragged out, waiting for the dark to settle completely. The guards make their rounds. Their boots echo on the wooden floors. One walks down the center aisle with a flashlight, shining it in faces at random, looking for something or nothing. Sometimes they pull a man up for questioning, for punishment, for transfer, for fun. And when that happens, everyone pretends to sleep. Eyes shut. Bodies still. Breathing shallow. If you move, you might be next. Tonight, they don't take anyone, but they could. And that's enough. Eventually, the light goes out. The bulb dims. A click. Then, blackness. And now the real night begins. No stars. No moon, just the slow, muffled orchestra of misery, coughing, whimpering, the creak of a bunk, the scratching of lice, the wind moaning through the cracks in the walls, and beneath it all, a kind of silence that isn't peaceful. It's oppressive, heavy, suffocating. You try to sleep, but sleep is treacherous here. It teases you, just long enough for a dream to start. A warm bed, a bowl of soup, a face you haven't seen in years. Then the cold wakes you again. Your toes are numb. Your fingers throb. Your breath curls against your nose like smoke. You curl tighter, pressing your knees to your chest, wrapping your coat around your ribs. You listen. You always listen. Because night in the Gulag isn't quiet. Not really. That's when the whispers start. Not conversation. That's dangerous. Just low murmurs. Men talking to themselves. Repeating names. Humming songs. Reciting prayers they swore they forgot. Some cry. Silently into sleeves. Some grind their teeth. Some moan in their sleep. Dreams of home or nightmares of the guards. You once heard a man scream himself awake. He said he saw his wife at the edge of the camp, calling to him. He tried to run. They shot him before he reached the fence. Said it was an escape attempt. It wasn't. It was a memory. Even now, years later, you still wake up sometimes and swear you hear your child's laugh echoing through the rafters, but it's not real. Just your brain clawing at anything soft, anything kind. There are rumors that people die in their sleep. Peacefully, they say. But nothing is peaceful here. Even death has teeth. Sometimes a man just stops moving. You wake up and he's still lying there, eyes open, mouth frozen mid-breath. Sometimes they stiffen before morning. Sometimes they soil themselves in the night, and no one notices. The guards don't rush to remove the body. They wait for morning roll call. Then they come in with a cart. They don't say his name. They don't ask who he was. They just take the body, and life continues. The bunk is empty for a few hours. Then someone else lies down in it, like it never mattered. Because in the Gulag, you are already half dead. Night just brings it closer. And worse than death is the fear. The fear that you'll be the one taken next. The fear that your name will be on the list tomorrow. The fear that your cough means something. The fears that the pain in your gut is scurvy, or worse. The fear that your bunkmate will stab you for your coat. The fear that the guards will decide they need fewer mouths to feed. The fear that this is all you'll ever know. You try to breathe. The air is heavy with sweat and frost. Your chest aches. You close your eyes. You tell yourself just sleep. But even sleep is dangerous. Dreams betray you. They show you soft things, warm hands, bright rooms, laughter. And then you wake up, back here, back in the dark, back in the cold. And every time it hurts more, because you remember. You remember what was, what could have been, what you were before the number, before the uniform, before the frost-bitten mornings and the spoiled cabbage soup, before the Gulag stole your name and gave you a shovel. You open your eyes. The dark stares back. The wind howls outside, and somewhere, just outside the walls, an animal cries. Or maybe it's a man. You'll never know. You press your face into your sleeve and wait. Wait for the whistle. Wait for the guard. Wait for morning. If it comes. Morning comes eventually. It always does. But somehow, in a place like this, daylight doesn't feel like salvation. It just feels like another shift, another round, another full-body reminder that you've survived. Yes, but only barely. You stir in your bunk. You're stiff, you're cold, you're hungry again. You open your eyes. Same cracked wall, same threadbare blanket, same familiar silent shuffle of men waking up but saying nothing. You hear a cough, the dragging of boots, a body creaking as it rolls out of a too narrow space that was never meant to be a bunk. The stove in the center of the barrack is cold. No one kept it going. You all hoped someone else would. So the day starts the way it always does, shivering, aching, without a word. You go through the same motions. You check your spoon. You check your boots. You check that the crust of bread you hid under your straw hasn't been stolen. You line up. You get counted. You march. And no matter how many days pass, it never gets easier. The body breaks slowly here, not in a single snap, but in small, persistent fractures. Your teeth loosen, your joints throb, your memories blur. You try to remember your mother's voice, your child's face, the sound of rain on a roof that wasn't leaking. But the camp is loud, even in its silence, and memory fades faster than cold. Still, you're here. You are still here. Somehow, and that is no small thing, because now, as your breathing slows, now that you're lying in a real bed, not a wooden board wrapped in lice and regret, now that you're listening to this from the comfort of safety, of modernity, of peace, let yourself remember how far we've come. Let yourself feel the contrast. You're not wearing stiff wool soaked in sweat and snow. You're not chewing on soup that tastes like regret. You're not praying your bunkmate doesn't steal your blanket, or that your toes don't fall off tonight. You're safe. There are walls around you that keep out the wind. There's warmth not measured in stolen wood or body heat, but in central heating and modern comfort. You don't have to wonder if the man in the tower will shout your name. You don't have to fear that forgetting your quota means freezing to death. You don't have to sleep with one eye open, afraid of rats, disease, or betrayal. You have a door that locks, a pillow that's soft, sheets that are clean. No one's counting your rations or weighing your worth by how much you can dig before you collapse. And that, maybe more than anything else, is worth pausing for. The Gulag was not ancient history. It wasn't some medieval nightmare. It was the 20th century. Modern trains brought people there. Modern pens signed the orders. Educated men built the camps. Cities functioned while thousands froze just out of sight. It was systematic, organized, cold in every sense. Millions passed through the Gulag. Some came back. Many did not. But the stories remain. The whispered prayers, the smuggled poems, the wooden spoons carved by moonlight, the stolen scraps of kindness passed between prisoners like sacred offerings. These things mattered. And as you drift now toward sleep, maybe let that be the last thing you carry from this journey. Not just the horror, not just the darkness, but the fragile, stubborn thread of humanity that somehow still existed inside it. The quiet man who shared his bread, the woman who sang lullabies through cracked lips, the girl who carried her baby in a scarf while shoveling snow with blistered hands, the political prisoner who drew a flower in the corner of a punishment cell and whispered, "It's not much, but it's something." That's what survived. That's what you carry with you now. So tonight, as you lie in your own bed, soft and warm, with no one counting your breaths or measuring your worth by your labor, close your eyes. Let your mind slow, let the dark feel safe again. The Gulag is far away, a shadow behind us, a warning, a memory. And you are free. So sleep deeply. No barracks, no barking dogs, no distant whistle cutting the air. Only silence now. Only peace, and tomorrow, when you wake, it will be in your own bed, under your own roof, with your own name still yours. So tonight, as you drift off, remember, you don't have to wake up in a Soviet Gulag. Sleep well.